This is a continuation of video 2, in which we talked about the early civilizations of Stonehenge, Aleppo, Jericho, and Catalhuyuk, and then we started talking about the Paleolithic era. We finished the Paleolithic era. Remember, the Paleolithic era was all about hunting and gathering, simple tools, the use of fire, cave art, development of oral or spoken language. These are all attributes or characteristics of the Old Stone Age or the Paleolithic era. Now we're going to talk about the Neolithic era or New Stone Age. Neos meaning new, lithos meaning stone, Neolithic, New Stone Age. The Neolithic era or age lasted from about 8,000 BCE to about 3,000 BCE. This is after the end of the last ice age. So because it was not as cold, the temperatures rose, it did allow for the beginnings of agriculture or farming. This is the big picture difference between the Paleolithic and Neolithic eras. During the Neolithic era, early man is going to use polished stone tools, so more advanced stone tool weaponry, tools and weaponry. They made pottery, they developed weaving skills, and they're going to grow crops and raise animals. Let's go through each of these. So stone tools and weapons they're going to use for farming, they're going to use it for hunting, because there will still be hunting and gathering. But the primary or main source of food is going to become farming or agriculture. Pottery is going to be used to store grain from this farming. It is going to, some will be very basic, some will be very ornate or decorated, but the pottery, the main use is going to be the storage of grains, meaning food, the early forms of food. The development of weaving skills is going to lead to different types of clothing, things like baskets and things like that. And then the growing of crops, again, agriculture, big picture difference. They're also going to raise animals in the Neolithic era. This is going to allow for these animals to help with this agriculture. We're talking about things like an ox. We're talking about things like dogs are going to be early animals that are domesticated or trained. Domesticated is a vocabulary word. The Neolithic Revolution was the result of the beginnings of farming, which changed life. As the planet warmed up, the growing seasons lengthened. This allowed for populations to begin farming. Now, again, farming is going to allow for more people to be able to live together because they are stable. They're in one spot. And so because they're in one spot and they're able to grow a lot of food, they can grow their own food. They can have more people in their civilizations. If they have more people, they have more individuals that can do specific types of jobs. So we'll see the beginnings of job specialization. So people who are specifically going to be farmers, some who might create weapons, some who might create homes. People will have specific jobs because there are more people. They can focus on things other than just hunting and gathering. So there were different ways that farmers were able to clear land in order to allow them to farm. One of those methods is known as slash and burn farming. So they cut trees or grass, and then they light them on fire and burn them. They would grow food on this land. It would be very good soil to grow food on. And they would use that land for a year or two, and then they'd start doing the same thing on another piece of land because of all the nutrients. If you use the same part of land to farm on year and year and year again, you're going to use all the nutrients in the soil. And so they wouldn't be able to use that land ever again if that happened. So they were able to figure out how to use different pieces of land for farming, for agriculture. They began to domesticate or tame animals. Here you can see some of the animals that they used in the Neolithic era: pigs, sheep, cows, a bull, goats, all animals that are going to be domesticated or trained, that are going to help with not only farming, but also just access to food and nutrients that are needed. They were also going to be a good source of labor, these animals that are going to be domesticated. They're going to be able to pull plows, and they're going to be able to help with the farming process. Domestication or training of animals and domestication of plants, or figuring out how to make plants grow to farm, is going to lead to sedentism. If you've ever heard the word sedentary, it means that you're very still or stationary. You're always in the same place. So domestication of plants and animals will lead to sedentism, which means living in one place. So if we take a look at this representation of a Neolithic village here, we can see a couple of things that represent the fact that this is the Neolithic era. We could take a look here. We see these houses or huts. This alludes to them being stationary. It's not something you could just pick up and go with like they would need in the Paleolithic era. We see over here agriculture. We see farming going on. They have some tools that they're using to help them cut whatever it is that is growing. We see animals that are trained or domesticated. We see stone tools, more advanced stone tools, pottery, which is used to store those grains. So there's a lot of different aspects here of a Neolithic settlement. Now, the agricultural revolution, if you take a look here, we have average global temperature and years ago. So we see that the temperature is going to be very low during the last ice age. But after the last ice age, we see the global temperature start to rise. That is where agriculture is going to begin. It's going to be when the temperature around the world is going to start rising, after the end of the last ice age. Here we have world population in millions, and we have how many years ago in thousands. So we see very low world population, 25,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago, 15,000 years ago, even 10,000 years ago. This lighter gray column here is really when the population skyrockets from maybe a couple million in the world to 90 million 5,000 years ago. And this was when hunting and gathering had ended. The white is the hunting and gathering. This light gray is agricultural revolution, so the Neolithic era, when agriculture began, or farming. And then the population will continue to rise after that era ends, because agriculture will still continue. But there's a huge jump in population because, again, people are no longer moving around. They can settle in larger groups, and they are more stationary. They have those basic needs from that Maslow's hierarchy of needs met, and so they're able to focus on more than just that hunting and gathering.